Hello Year 7, I'm just going to quickly run through the answers to the plant cell lesson from Wednesday. I did ask you at the start on the first slide to click this picture here and watch the video. Now I know that not everyone did that. I could tell just from your answers that you had not done that. So if you see a video link, you do need to make sure that you are watching those videos to remind you of what's happening. Right, questions. The first few questions were from the previous lesson about animal cells to try and see what you remember. So which cell part is this? It's the jelly-like substance that it's pointing at, so this is called cytoplasm. What is the function of the cell membrane? So if we look at this picture, the cell membrane is the blue line around the outside, and that controls what enters and leaves the cell. Where in the cell is the DNA stored? So if we look back to this picture, this blue blob in the middle is called the nucleus. Okay, so where in the cell is DNA stored? In the nucleus. Which part of the cell releases energy from food via respiration? So those purple dots on the picture, they were called mitochondria. What happens in the cytoplasm? Well, this is the site of all the chemical reactions that happen in the cell. Now, plant cells, plants, just like animals, are made of cells, and the cells have the same parts of animal cells, but they also have 3 extra parts that animal cells don't have. So I asked you to identify parts we already knew in the animal cell by drawing lines to them. So the mitochondria are these little purple dots all over the cell, and the nucleus was the blue dot. Lots of us chose this bigger light green dots, but that's a different part. Where is the cell membrane? So if you look at the yellow box around the outside, you can see that it's got an outer line and an inner line. So the cell membrane is the inner layer of that yellow box. And then it asks you to draw out this picture on a piece of paper to help you with the rest of the lesson. And I'm also convinced that when I went through the answers that quite a few of you skipped the drawing out stage as well. It was obvious to me who had drawn the picture and used it to help them and who had not drawn the picture. So 3 new words on this picture here. So we've added extra parts to this cell, 3 new words, but what do they mean? So firstly, we have surrounding the cell something called a cell wall, and this supports the cell. It's made of a chemical called cellulose, but its main job is to support this cell. Plants don't have bones like humans do, so they need these strong cells to help them stand up. The cell membrane is on the inside, and the cell wall is on the outside. The cell membrane controls what enters and leaves the cell. 3 new words, but what do they mean? So the next part, the grey blob, was called the vacuole. And this contains something called cell sap, which is like water full of sugar and salts and things like that. And it can fill with water, and most of the time it is filled with water. You'll know if you don't water a plant that it starts to kind of wilt. So when you water it, the water goes inside these vacuoles in the cells, and their job then is to keep the cell rigid. And again, this is because plants don't have bones, so they need these things to keep them stiff and strong so they can stand up. And then the next new word was chloroplasts, and these contain a chemical called chlorophyll, which absorbs sunlight to make food for the plant. So their job is to make the food for the plant. So, quick few questions on that information, which if you drew the picture and added the notes, would be easy peasy. What was the name of part A? The cell wall. What was the name of part B? The mitochondria. What was the name of part C? The vacuole. What was the name of part D? The chloroplast. What was the job of the cell wall? It was to support the cell. What was the job of the mitochondria? To release energy from glucose or food. So the plants still need energy to do things like grow and move when they want to move their leaves towards the sun and things like that. That takes energy. What was the function of the vacuole? And that was to keep the cell rigid. And what was the function of the chloroplast? That was to absorb light and to make food for the plant. Then we had another little quick quiz. So we've watched a video, we've recapped the parts of an animal cell, we've looked at the parts of a plant cell, we've added some extra notes. So, in which part of the cell is the DNA stored? The answer is the nucleus. Where in a cell do chemical reactions happen? This is the cytoplasm. So it mentioned that in the video. What is the function of the cell membrane? So we've had this question already, but if you watch the video and if you made the notes on your diagram, you would have written down it controls what enters and leaves the cell. Which three parts do both plant and animal cells have? So if you had made a drawing of the animal cell or just looked it up, then you would have seen the nucleus, the cytoplasm, and the cell membrane are all in common. You could also have had mitochondria because that is in both of the drawings that we've done. They actually overall have 5 parts in common. We've learned 4 of those, and we'll learn about another one called ribosomes later on. Which of these would you find only in a plant cell? That would be a cell wall. And circle how you're feeling about your knowledge. Now, just a couple of points from what I've marked. Some people are Googling, cutting and pasting answers, but because they haven't read what they're Googling or they haven't really thought about what they're typing in, what they're pasting is utter nonsense. So if you are Googling, make sure you're Googling sensibly. For example, add the word key stage 3 or key KS3 onto the end of your Google search, so it brings up things that are appropriate to your level. I can also tell that you're just picking the very first thing that comes up on Google, and that's because 3 or 4 people are pasting identical paragraphs or sentences, which are incorrect, incidentally. So you need to make sure you're reading and you know what you're posting. I do look forward to you telling me all about mitosis and meiosis, those people who kept pasting those words for me. Okay, you did try hard, most of you, so I was very pleased with that. From this point on, if you skip most of the questions, I'll be returning the work undone. If you've skipped more than half the questions, then you haven't really tried the work, and I'm going to post the work back to you and ask you to try and do it again. Okay, but another good day. Specialized cells in the next lesson, so hopefully that's gone okay. I know a few people emailed today because I am a day behind in my marking, but we're plodding on. We will do some revision soon, and then we will know a little bit better how we're doing. Okay, see you in the next lesson.